Hello, everyone. I'm happy to see many people together, and I know that some people will be seeing it afterwards. So also, I take the opportunity to greet to that people who is not going to be in front of us right now, but we expect to have the opportunity of doing it later. So as you know, you may have read the introduction, the motivation, and so of the workshop. Workshop that is also articulated in 3 different phases. The GlossaLAB Workshop, which is our 4th edition of the GlossaLAB Workshop. And this is devoted to the mapping of information understanding. As you know, this workshop is within one of the activities organized within the summit of the International Society for the Study of Information. That contains several congresses, several activities in parallel. So it's throughout June. It has some online phase and another face-to-face phase which is in Bulgaria. And this Congress, which belongs to the Social Information Gatherings organized by the Institute for a Global Sustainable Information Society, is one of the tracks within this activity organized by GSIS from Austria. So the International Society for the Study of Information is an international organization which is settled, or the headquarters are in Austria, and we have the general secretary with us is Annette. And so we expect that we can contribute in a way. In actually, 2 of the contributors of the proponents of this workshop, Teresa and myself, will be. So right now we are president-elects, and we might become the presidents for the next period. So the proponents of this seminar, of this workshop, are I have mentioned already Teresa and myself, and it's also Jorge Morato from the University Carlos III of Madrid, and Modestos Stavrakis from the University of the Aegean in Greece, in a place where several people are gathered together today. And more people will be coming in the next days there to Syros, because one of the platforms that we will be talking about, the GlossaLAB platform, is actually hosted there in Syros, and in general, what we are going to try to show you is the framework or the research program in which we are immersed. Most of the people that are going to present something are involved in this program, so I will try to give some general orientation about what are the activities we are carrying out, and what is the research framework in which we are immersed. So the idea is mapping the information understanding, and one of the key objectives is we want to improve information, the quality of information, beyond many of the drawbacks of the so-called information that contains overloads, it contains obscurities, it contains defeats, it contains exclusions, and many of the, so to say, the lyrics of the information societies is that everybody is included, information is a clear path to knowledge, and so on. But the reality is very different, and I think we got to express a little bit with this representation of, we want to bring clarity in several respects on what information really is, and also to bring some lights also to the exchange of information. Okay, so that is about the framework in which we are. So the mastering of the information understanding, we can consider that the problem that we are facing, and this is concerns the research program in which we are, it's twofold. So on the one hand, we must better understand the information in its multifarious aspects. So it contains many different perspectives and also contains different applications. So we are using in very different ways. But if we consider it quietly, so this is kind of the situation in which the understanding of energy, so the situation for the understanding of energy in the 19th century. If you get to ask in the myth of the 19th century, so what energy is, there was like many different understandings. So, but the possibility of seeing that in the end there is just one single thing that can't be called energy, and that enables to generalize, to embrace all the different kinds of energy, that was very significant and probably one of the most important contributions of the physics of the 19th century, together with the physics of fields. So we are in a similar situation. We have been working on information technologies. Information is being used in biology, in physics, in chemistry, in social sciences, and in technology. We are using from very different perspectives. In many, if you ask to many people, most of the people may have just the idea of how this is connected to knowledge, how this is connected to language, to the communication exchange. But actually, if you go to each of these specialists, they would see very different views. So this is one of the parts of the problem. So we want to understand better in a better integrated way. And we consider that this is important for the second part of the problem. So we need to cope with the flood of information. Is an enormous flow, which is a flood. So people feel immersed in the midst of a flood. So it is not just information that can be used. So we have overloads and all the things that I've been mentioning. And we need information for solving problems. We need information to make decisions. We need information to make our lives. In a way, if we do a correct interpretation or a broad interpretation of information, we could understand it, for example, in terms of interaction, and then information is something very general that concerns the dynamics of the interaction of in between any two agents. So this is what I just said. So similar to energy, but the representation that we have here is a representation that has some properties, has the properties of the free scale networks. And the free scale networks is something that we can find in many different networks in nature. For example, so knowledge networks, collaboration networks of different kind, and also networks of proteins, networks in physical interaction. In many situations, we can find that when we let so bodies interacting, so different agents interacting, in the end, the kind of organization that get to be developed in the long term contains some of these properties that are statistical properties and structural properties. But at the same time, there is another thing that is being represented here, and it's like many dots that are disconnected, because this is one of the problems we consider also relevant in the information society. So there are many people who is not really connected, or the kind of connection. So if we would think that there is some connection with that people, is so thin in comparison with the capacity or the strength of being connected by other people, is very different. So the quality, the capacity of getting connected is very different, and this is also something we want to embrace. So as for the mastering of the information understanding, so what we are focusing on is on an interdisciplinary undertaking in the first term. But bringing together information and systems studies, so we also have the intention that and the believing that it's possible to develop a transdisciplinary framework for the understanding of information. But in order to develop an transdisciplinary framework in which we get to develop a theory that we all can understand, can use, can be applied to any particular domain. Before we have that, we just need to summon all the different perspectives in an interdisciplinary way. And the underpinnings for transdisciplinarity in our way, they will be networks, informations, and systems. So we have developed it, but this is kind of a hypothesis that we will use the subsidiary information model because this is related to something, to the second part of the problem. The subsidiary information model is the one in which we can consider the network of adaptive agents that interact between each other, and this creates a network that, in the case that is sufficiently effective, it contains some functions, sufficient functions, and has the capacity to preserve those functions. So has the capacity to act as an agent, then we can consider it as an aggregate agent. And then we can understand nature through different levels. For example, we can address very complicated issues. So all the problems we need to cope with, in a way, they are in some part of our global terrestrial context. And we can see it from different levels. So the network perspective enables us to use through different levels, considering the socioeconomical network, and then seeing systems there that interact with the biospherical environment. But we can use, like in parallel, a digital network that facilitates us to be connected. Which the kind of interaction that exists between the parts at each level can be different. We also need to exchange materials. So we need a transport network for materials and goods. We need a network for production and food distribution. We need water supply. We need energy. So in the end, when we consider information, matter, and energy, so then are like the different parts we can consider, and we can embrace them together in these multi-level networks. Of course, we don't have to do this all the time, but at least we have the possibility of being connected to the issues that other people are being dealing with. As for the mapping of information understanding, which is what is gathering us today, so when we bring that idea of the network, then we consider it at the following level. So we have agents, we have scientists that interact with each other. This is like kind of the first level of interaction. But what they are doing when they are making theory, when they are in a scientific discourse, they are expressing propositions or building a theory through axioms, definitions, and theorems, or expressions of different kinds by combining the concepts that we have. So in the end, we can refer the theories by considering the network that is being established between the different concepts. So what all these concepts in a disciplinary setting, is more or less well known by all the participants. So that means that we have here an agent that is exchanging, is communicating with another agent, and this agent has in his mind one network of concepts, so one knowledge system. This is kind of a representation of the knowledge system, the conceptual network. his or her own conceptual network, and can't be similar. So they will be kind of similar in between all the agents that collaborate in a disciplinary setting. But the problem is what happens when we have agents that belong to different disciplinary knowledge disciplines, knowledge domains. When they belong to different knowledge domains, then we have here the problem of interdisciplinary communication. And this is something we want to deal with. And in the building up of a transdisciplinary setting, we want to see what are the not only the convergence, the terminological convergence, but also the divergence. So what is divergent? So what is different? So what are the primitive concepts that we need to preserve in order to avoid that we are missing meaning? So we don't want to lose the meaning that is being preserved or that is being respected and attended by all the disciplines that are being summoned. So the problems of information meaning and quality concerns of truth and justification. It concerns clarity. It concerns inclusiveness. And so there are several drawbacks of the information that deteriorates quality, and we want to be attentive of all of them. So one of our hypotheses is that the measures that we make in the dual network of contexts and cognitive agents reflect the qualitative properties of information and knowledge, such as the truthfulness, justification, and clarity based on the network properties. So we want to investigate those properties, that network. So what happens? So when people start to interact, we want to analyze the knowledge network, and for that purpose, so we use one tool that we have discussed previously. Since 2018, we have several publications about the concept of the interdisciplinary glossary. And later we will show you that one of the activities and the encyclopedic projects that gather some of the people who are here today, that was the Glossarium Vitri. We have articulated into the platform, annotated in such a way that we can do this kind of investigation, that we can check so how is the network of interaction, so the network of concepts and also the network of interaction between agents, and that this would enable us to qualify the integration of knowledge. So one of the first things that we can do, which is relatively easy, is to measure the diversity in order to assess so how diverse, so how interdisciplinary, so what is the intensity of the interdisciplinarity. One of the dimensions is how many are presented, so how many people are participating, so from the different perspectives, and in what amount. So for that we use the Shannon Diversity Index, but we are also considering other ways of dealing with this aspect of diversity. And the other is about the effective integration. We are also evaluating several ways, but the idea is to check in the network so how well integrated it is. For example, if we have a very well integrated network, neuronal network of a person who is thinking well, who is not mad or is not under neurosis or things like that, if he's working normally, so there is like a relation that exists between the distances of the elements of the network and also the grouping, so a measurement of the grouping. The relation that is called the small coefficient is something that we also use to check how well integrated it is. And of course, also we are attentive of other qualitative so features of the clarity. Our second hypothesis is that the elucidated content, so when we ask people, so what do you understand for a concept in the interdisciplinary glossaries, in which for a concept we gather the views of different participants of different disciplines, when this is devoted to a particular object field, this serves as a proxy of this knowledge integration of the that is being achieved in that field, and that can be qualified through the network analysis. So we consider that it's going to be feasible to achieve that by using the interdisciplinary glossaries as a proxy of the knowledge system. So the information quality we want to be aware of concerns, so the trust, as I mentioned, trust and justification completeness is also something very important, because often the problem with the information exchange is that it's not complete, and then people cannot develop the correct idea about the reality that wants to be informed about. And this second part about clarity and inclusiveness, this concerns the effectiveness of information. So if we are not clear, so we can make that people start to explain a lot, but we also need to make that there is a clear connection, a good connection, an effective connection between the people. So if this is saying something that is very confused, then in the end it's going to be no exchange, no understanding. So then the clarity is important. But sometimes clarity with respect to completeness is in difficulties, or also with the maxims of communication cooperation, no? The Gears maxims of communication cooperation. No? Sometimes this is difficult to be achieved. So there we need to. To get a balance between them, and of course inclusiveness is also important, because otherwise we left all these people that were around absolutely disconnected. So this is also something very important for a global sustainable information society, and part of our program contains this, and some of the people that is going to present today are going to tell us a lot about that. The third hypothesis, that the intentional performance of the elucidation combined is something that we are developing, which is a federated system of interdisciplinary glossaries. So it provides a way to evaluate the integrative capacity of the system in its vertical dimension. So I will explain this later. So when we told you about what are we doing, and we will show you also the example of the glossarium vitri. But the idea in general, to put it in brief, is to have like several autonomous interdisciplinary glossaries working in different disciplines, or at different levels of abstraction. So at the highest level, we had like a transdisciplinary encyclopedia, and we have an encyclopedia for information, we have an encyclopedia for systems, and an encyclopedia for cybernetics, and then we have here more focus, so interdisciplinary glossaries, and of course we have the proposals. So one of the things that we are inheriting is we received so the task to continue several encyclopedic projects. So one is the glossarium vitri, we will talk later. But in terms of extension, the most important one is the International Encyclopedia of System Science and Cybernetics from Charles François, and the Principia Cybernetica, because it contains several interesting dictionaries, Krippendorf Dictionary, and also the Dictionary of the North American Society for Cybernetics. So we have converted absolutely the glossarium vitri. We have also converted this encyclopedia. However, there is not everything is public. So we will show you something that has come to the public, and we have achieved it today, because that was like 2 weeks ago. I asked to Danny, do you think we can manage? Because actually we were planning to do it in the following months. I said, do you think we can manage to do it until today? And this morning, so just a few hours ago, so he got to finish. So we finished it at that time. But it is not only to have it interoperable, but something that we will tell you. The other part of the program, it contains the second problem. So the second problem was the coping with information flow, or as I put it before, the information flood. And the mastering of the information management for sustainability is something that we also connect to the model that I referred before. So I talk about a model for information, but the cyber subsidiarity model is like the practical part. So how can we use this model to cope with complexity, with the flood of information, or with the flow of information through different levels. So the idea is that we need to make a proper percolation of meaningful information at the correct level, so that we can address the problems in which we are immersed and we have to cope with, as it's supposed to be. So our fourth hypothesis, that the ontologies, the information qualifiers, and the predictive filtering to provide the basic assets to carry out the relevance and insightful filtering. So the previous work will help us in doing this filtering. So we want to know about what is really important. So what is the quality? So the quality enable us to see how to master information, how to make it that this is be taken in order to make the decisions, to make that this information serve at the level that is supposed to work. And I don't want to extend anymore. It's long. We start a little bit late. There was some of the original presentation had to be so cancel. I don't know how is actually Katerina can go. This is the schedule. So in principle, Katerina can present so the work together with Modestos about signifying the unseen, how friction and speculation reframe information design, which is something very interesting, because often we just talk about information about reality, but what happened with the information when we are designing, when we are planning, when we are and we are all the time doing planning. So as Stafford Beer stated, knowing is not knowing about what is the case. So what we actually need to know is what is going to be the case, because our lives evolves in that situation. Then for that purpose, we need to forecast. We need to also to preview. So what are the scenarios in which our plans are going to evolve? And for design science, this is fundamental. Isaac will talk us about improving understanding in the back and forth from theory to practice, which is a project in which we have been also working for several years. Jorge, but probably, I don't know if it's Jorge himself or somebody on his behalf, is going to present about beyond obscurities and exclusions, leveraging information through clarity. So we will have a pause. And then right after, we will have a practical session in which we are going to show you that Glossarium V3 that I have right now promised it. That will be Daniel together with me, and I will tell you just a few ideas, and then Daniel will show you what we have done. Nieves Domingo will tell us about clarity in intercultural education. Juan Romero will tell us about all these projects in which we are also immersed about clear information, clear language or plain language for all, because we want to connect also everyone to have not only information for a few, we also want to have that. And this represents one of the big projects in which we are now immersed. Maria Jose Naranjo, that we talked before, she will talk us about mapping collection gaps, diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment at the Information Film Institute. Very, very related to what we have been discussing, and also very connected to Juan's presentation that Juan will, in a way, will show us. So in general, the larger spectrum of what we intend to do. June, Ibarzola and Ana Iglesias will talk us about use of generative artificial intelligence tools to transform complex text into plain text. So more details about that part of the program regarding clarity. So thank you very much to everyone.